on social-legal management or pluralism with special reference to India. Now, since you have a two-week program, lot many speakers must have talked earlier. And therefore, I start with a quote from Andre Gide that all that was to be said has been said. But since nobody listens, let's say it again. Now, pluralism as a concept has been a matter of endless discourse and debates, particularly in 20th and 20th century. And this concept emerged as a Western construct because when Western world colonized the entire Afro-Asian continents, they had a dilemma, a problem at hand. Because they had to govern, administer societies where they had multiple types of pluralism. And obviously, the Western construct has been that pluralism of any kind can be best managed only through the instrumentality of law. Outside law, they did not think of and did not employ any social and cultural mechanics for effective management of pluralism. In fact, they use it to their advantage. Like, for instance, when they came to India, they found that there are various indigenous systems of law, customs, usages, practices, religion, culture, languages, tribes, castes. Because pluralism is not only implies a legal construct, in fact, it is multidimensional. All sort of experts talk of it, be it social sciences like sociology, or economics, or political science, or theology, even metaphysics and philosophy. All these experts have been dissecting, analyzing, and commenting on pluralism and its various facets. This being multidimensional, we try to understand it depending on what approach do you have from multiple dimensions. But before we start the dissection, that analysis, let's look at two things. One, recognition of pluralism as a social fact, as a social reality. That in most of societies, we have pluralism at various levels. It is only few states or few societies that are unitary in nature, which have no pluralism because they have the same language, same religion, same culture, almost same law. And Western society did not have this dilemma at all, which we have to face here. Like, for example, after disintegration of the church, when Pope lost his primacy, nation states emerged in Europe. And the concerned nation state was that nation state is one which is united by certain common factors, like they have the same religion, the same language, the same way of life, almost same legal systems, and other important social political institutions. Like, for example, in the continent of Europe, either they are Romanized law, the Roman law, or the British, the common law. They did not look beyond these systems. They tried to understand these systems only when they colonized Afro-Asia. So they found pluralism deeply embedded at multiple levels in such societies. And the problem at hand was how to manage it. Because pluralism, whether it is social, it is cultural, is linguistic, it is economic, it is political, that has two aspects which we should recognize. One, that there are differences, there are inequalities, there are distinctions, there is no uniformity, there is diversity. And we are such a mosaic with lot many differences between communities and groups as such. This we should realize, and they did realize when I came here. Now, since they are used to govern through centralized system, that they have one legal system, they have one state authority, the sovereign, they try to manage it within the framework of the state system. Although in medieval and ancient India, and you must have been discussing this issue, our systems were not entirely centralized. Like, for example, we had the king, and king was not a maker of law. King was only enforcer of law. He would enforce the law. He's a wielder of dand, punishment. He's not a creator. Where the Western concept is that all law flows from, the source of all law is the sovereign authority of the states. The positive approach in European countries, including Austin and others, which you in any case understand. And at local level, these laws were administered not by the king. In fact, we had various systems at local community level. For example, our system was conciliatory at panchayat level, at family level, at tribal level, at community level. The means that community employed to manage that pluralism was through conciliation, arbitration. Our system was not adversarial. Where the Western model was that it is based on adversarial approach. Two parties to a dispute should fight their battle out on the basis of prescribed legal norms which emanate from the sovereign authority of the state. And they would not accept any other law. So what they did was that they attacked pluralism in India in two ways: to control it, to manage it, and in some cases to undermine it. One approach was that destroy their indigenous institutions so that only one system works. That is the English legal system, the common law system. That is why after Lex Losa report of 1840, in which it was stated that from legal point of view, India is a vacuum. There are no law of the land here. There is nothing like Indian law. Whatever law is there in this country, these laws are private, these are religious laws, they are community laws, they are not laws of land. I am referring to Hindu law, the Muslim law, the Jewish law, the tribal laws, and other laws. They were not Indian laws. They were laws of the communities. So what they tried to do was, since India they found as a vacuum from legal point of view, they introduced the English legal system, the English law in India, starting with the first law commission report and then subsequent codification of Indian laws based on common law principles. All your important statutes like IPC, like CPC, like CRPC, like Company Act, like Evidence Act, like Trust Act, like negotiable instruments, and all mercantile laws, they were inducted in this country as part of that process. So they try to manage this to their advantage through the instrumentality of law which they introduced in any case in India. And today, whatever laws we have outside private laws, we have our entire law based on English common law, including our constitution. Whereas the Indian system was that life was organized more at local level rather than at centralized level. We did not have that sort of centralization. So at family level, at panchayat level, at community level, we had hierarchy of courts, and they worked more on the basis of conciliation rather than on adversarial system. So the British rulers, they tried to use individualism to their advantage. You all know that they could rule this country for quite long based on the policy of divide and rule. Divide and rule is nothing but employment of individualism to their advantage by pitching one community against the other. They exploited these differences in the prism to their advantage. Hindu against Muslim, Muslim against others, they divided and they ultimately ruled. And they had been very successful in doing this. So first thing they did, and please take note of it, they destroyed all the Indian institutions and laws, indigenous laws, which had managed Indian pluralism and diversity somewhat satisfactorily. I don't say entirely, but quite satisfactorily. And life was organized at community level. Like, for example, we had the panchayat system. Panchayat system British had destroyed and replaced it with the judicial system which they introduced as part of common law. So panchayat system was gone. They destroyed it. At socialist family level, we had a joint family system. Joint family system was the best insurance based on mutual trust and mutual help. They destroyed it because they brought in the concept of individualism, that individual is important, community and family is not that important from legal point of view. We give rights to individuals. We don't give rights to families. We don't give right to communities. This was based on indigenous approach of legal rights. So much so that they had enacted a law. I forget the year. Gains of Learnings Act. Gains of Learnings Act was designed to destroy the joint family system in this country. And this provided that an Indian employee in government service need not put his monthly salary in the family basket. He can keep it separate for himself. And if he has some land or something, then he should also share the fruits of that land as member of the family. He would not put in the common basket. Whereas family's joint savings system was that all earnings of all family members shall be put in a common basket. The family may be poor. Everybody shall get to eat, whether he earns or he doesn't earn, whether disabled, old or sick, does not matter. This thing they destroyed. Then again, the system is school education. Our school education, the Gurukul system was different. They brought in and replaced the system with the public education system, like the concept of public schools. Public schools were elitists, and the main job was to educate and train young men and women for service under the government. It may be military service, it may be civil service. So they, according to Macaulay, introduced English education, destroyed the school system, and he did it with a view that by imparting English education, we shall create a class of Indian babus. He was criticized, he was opposed, ultimately carried his way through. And at the end of it, he could create a class which he had designed and planned for. A class of babus, Indian babus, who are educated in English education. They would neither be Indian nor European. They will be hybrids. This hybrid class of people in government employment, they sustain the British Empire in this country. In fact, they had a complex superiority over fellow Indians. And white men manage it very well by creating that class. So when that system was destroyed. As far as indigenous legal systems are concerned, indigenous laws were concerned, they did not recognize them outside the fold of personal laws. Personal laws were allowed, family dispute is settled, certain issues could be regulated by family laws, but otherwise the secular English will be used for all settlement of all sort of disputes. This is what the British did. So the net conclusion is that Indian society, which has been highly pluralistic right from the beginning, because we were never one nation. We have not been a nation state. In fact, we have been almost a subcontinent in which we had multiple cultures, multiple tribes, multiple religions, multiple laws, multiple customs, multiple ways of life, multiple languages. We were marked by this sort of pluralism right throughout the history. And Britishers exploited it to the hilt. This is how they managed it. But then this management was more of a suppression. Because they ruled, please mark the words, during British regime, although they said so, there was no rule of law. Rule of law was there in England, but there are no rule of law. There was law here, but there are no rule of law. In fact, it was rule by law. Rule by law, manage all conflicts, all differences, all disputes, entire pluralism through the dominant state system and the legal system which they had created. This is how I administered and managed it. And that is why you look up certain provisions which exist even today. Like, for example, law of sedition. Freedom of speech and expression is a fundamental right, including right to criticize government and its policies. That is a right available under the Constitution of every Indian citizen. But by introducing or inducting law of sedition under IPC, they made it so broad-based so broad-based that any comment, a small comment against the British regime in India, that was deemed as a sedition. And you already know that there is a discussion, a debate, a recommendation that law of sedition should not have any place in IPC. They should be deleted. Same was with the offense of conspiracy. It is so widely worded. Let me refer to Section 10 of Indian Evidence Act. Obviously, you don't have it with you. There is an illustration there attached to Section 10 that any act, any statement, anything done by any of the conspirators could be used in evidence against one and all others, even if they did not know each other, even if these acts were committed at different places or at different times. And one part which is very, very negative and illegal and unlawful, that any such conspirator shall be responsible for all acts, whether, please mark it, whether he joined the conspiracy later or he had left the group. He shall be answerable for all acts done before he joins and all acts which are done after he had left the conspiracy. This is entirely against the law, but this is part of Section 10 of Indian Evidence Act. So this is how they had rule by law rather than rule of law. And their construct of pluralism was entirely different based on Western tradition, the positiveness of their approach to law. Now, obviously, pluralism institution has two aspects, two important aspects. One, it is disruptive, it promotes, it enhances, it strengthens conflict, struggle, disputes, communalism, casteism, localism, linguistic jingoism. This is a negative aspect of pluralism, that in any society, these conflicts are bound to be there. And we are facing this problem right since the dawn of our history, because we are never a centralized system, we were a highly pluralist society. You read almost every day, you watch things, how conflict ridden is and has been our society. Disputes and conflicts over the language, over religion, over customs, over culture, on theology, on religion, in politics, in the area of economic development, there have been dissenting voices from so many quarters. This is one aspect which we should recognize in case of pluralism. The second aspect could be positive. It is a positive aspect too, because if you manage it well, then pluralism can produce, it can produce even positive results. It can make social life better, more peaceful, prosperous, with higher index happiness level. And some jurists have highlighted this aspect of pluralism. Like, for example, the French jurist Duguay and Durkheim. Durkheim has written copiously on division of labor. Division of labor in a plural society was the base, structural base for peace and prosperity in that organization, in that community. And Duggie, opposing the state system, the centralized system, had predicted that a day would come when state shall wither away. It will weaken. It shall be superfluous. We won't need it. And he advocates that we should resort to pluralism, decentralization of powers. Decentralize all powers and give these powers to the community so that community can manage its life at local level through mutual cooperation. He has given us the principle of social solidarity, social cooperation, social cohesion. And his pluralism is that in any given society, there are multiple associations. There are multiple associations in a human community at different levels. And each one of them is designed to achieve a specific objective through mutual cooperation of its members. Like, for example, there may be a trade union, a student union, a housing society, a teachers union, a scientist guild, a merchant guild, and so many others, and including your entertainment clubs, the private clubs, each one designed to achieve a specific objective in the given community. And how do they work? They work on the basis of mutual cooperation. They have their own constitution. They have their own rules. They follow those rules, enjoy those facilities, achieve those objectives. In such a scenario, state system is not needed. And he says, state is one of the multiple associations in a human society. State is not supreme. State is not all powerful. State is at par, is a parallel institution, which is concerned mainly with maintenance of law and order, wherever need be. So it is one of them, it is not above them. This is the sort of pluralism which Duggie and Durkheim advocate. Well, in some societies, this sort of social organization existed, even in ancient India. Let me mention here that we had village republics, we had district republics, we had province level republics. All these were, although there was a monarchy, there was a king. King was not a maker of law. King would only enforce the law. King is not a creator of law. And life was managed by and large by society through these institutions. So what Britishers did, in fact, they undermined and destroyed all these. Let me recount in brief your panchayat system, your joint family system, your modes of dispute settlement, the panchayat system, the conciliatory system, your school system. They all undermined it and replaced it with legally created institutions. This was the attack at one level. Destroy indigenous institutions, indigenous democracy, republicanism, local cooperation, local solidarity, and replace it with state-created legal norms. This was one pincer of that attack. The second was still worse, that they tried to change your epistemic approach, your cognition, your understanding or approach of certain fundamental questions. That was a cultural change. You change their culture, their attitudes to their own culture. And a stage came when they convinced many Indians that we are and have been a regressive, a backward, and uncivilized society. So many Indians who were in Western education, they believed in this. And they talked disparagingly of Indian society and its institutions. And we have even today such liberals with Western outlook who despise everything Indian and look to West and aping them. Like, for example, your food habits, your dress code, your language, your mannerism, your etiquette, your mode of salutation, your worldview, how you look at things, material outlook, consumerism, the Western consumerism. We never had that sort of consumerism in this country. Now that we have adopted that attitude, that perspective, we look at things from their point of view. That is why we have a cognitive change, a cultural change in our understanding, in our perspective, the way we look at things. This destroyed and undermined whatever was left of Indian culture and Indian civilization. This was more dangerous because we became, let me call it, Anglicized Indians. Anglicized Indians, the Western Indian. Look at the map of this country. Bengal, British came first. First they came to Bengal, Madras and Bombay, the present towns. Last of all they came to Punjab. They completed their conquest of this country after they defeated the Sikhs in 1848 finally. The shutter was down. No independent Indian state existed. Their conquest of this country was complete by 1848 after the defeat of the Sikhs. So Britishers came to Punjab last of all, moving from Calcutta, say to Lahore, to Rawalpindi. But then Punjab became more anglicized too quickly in comparison to Bengal. For instance, look to Punjabi music, Punjabi dress code, Punjabi food habits, Punjabi English language, call it English. You see, this is all westernized. In Bengal, we still have people who retain their culture, like they eat Bengali food. They wear dhoti and kurta, Bengali style. They take pride in talking their own language. They follow the rituals. They follow their culture. I don't say entirely, but more in comparison to Western India. That's why West India we call as Indian Europeans. Punjabis are known as Indian Europeans. They have imbibed, they have followed, imitated all that is Western. This was the most dangerous attack on our cultural heritage. on our epistemic thinking. They change our entire culture, our entire outlook. And now, as you very well said, in this country, we have two nations. One is Bharat and another is India. And the divide between India and Bharat is very clear. I need not dilate on Bharat and India divide. You can see it, you can feel it, it is something real, and the two don't meet. Like somebody had said, that east is east and west is west, and the two shall never meet. We are in the age of bullock cart even today, and we are in the missile age. India has both extremes on both sides. And this was contrived with purpose by the Britishers. So that pluralism, which we could have been proud of, because our social life was relatively more peaceful earlier than what it is today. Today, the society stands totally fragmented. Although we have tried to manage the negative aspects of pluralism through the instrumentality of law. That's why I thought of a topic that is socio-legal management of pluralism. We have worked with the Constitution, with our legal system, almost for 75, 76 years now. But instead of effective management through law, in fact, desired results have not been obtained. And we have vast plethora of laws. We have one of the most liberal constitution, which caters for Indian pluralism. Let me give some examples that there has been an economic pluralism in terms of extreme inequalities, in terms of earnings of people at different levels. So we try to bridge that gap by including Article 39, that states shall endeavor to ensure equitable distribution of wealth, so that wealth does not concentrate in few hands. That is why we had included by amendment the word socialism, which was not there originally in the preamble of the Constitution. You didn't have the word secularism, you didn't have that socialism. We introduced it by an amendment in the Constitution. Although we did it, but fact file shows, the ground really shows that we were never socialists. We never moved an inch towards socialism. And we shall never be a socialist community. We shall never be a socialist system. Why I say so? Look to the increasing income disparities in this country. It is for everyone to see that people are jobs, their earnings have gone down. Poor people have lower earnings today than what they had 5 years back. Whereas India takes pride in having larger and larger number of millionaires in last few years. Please understand, we have had the largest number of millionaires and billionaires in these last 10 years. So income disparity what we call economic pluralism, you see, that is intensifying, and society stand stratified. Likewise, equally divisive at social level. You abolished caste system, you abolished untouchability, you made stringent laws, so much so that if you utter certain words for someone, law shall not allow you even bail. I do not want to mention those words for that reason. There's no bail. Law is so strict. But then fact is, has caste system diminished? Well, it is very clear that caste system has intensified, so much so that caste even today plays the dominant role in our electoral system. You cannot ignore it. You cannot deny it. In fact, this is intensifying further and further. And some political parties who seek to rule India by winning elections, they are caste-based political parties. I have not named. There are a number of caste-based political parties which participate in national, state, and local elections. In view of this, caste factor shall not diminish. Likewise, religious divide, religious pluralism, multiple faiths, beliefs, religions we have in this country. And this also is accentuating. You already know that some followers or most of the followers of a particular religion, they might be voting for a particular party or maybe opposing a particular political party. Is this a democratic factor? Should democracy be decided and guided by such factors that people vote on the basis of which religion to follow? Religion has been a very important factor in Indian politics, in Indian elections. So that negative pluralism of caste, of economic privacy earnings, or religion, this is all intensifying. Likewise, linguistic divide. This has been a long pending problem. We have not been able to solve it. It still exists. And some states oppose the national language. We shall not accept it. And that is why we worked with 3-language formula. Now, if you make a student learn the local language, the national language, and then a foreign language, because you can't do without it, international business market, like English, we have burdened a student too much. This is at the cost of study of other subjects. And we are marred in this controversy for last 75 years. So much so that in a secular democratic republic, in fact, we had division of states, organization of states, reorganization of states on linguistic basis. On linguistic basis. Do you think this approach of the state, of your system, of your legal system, shall solve and manage the negative features of Indian pluralism? Answer is certainly no. Likewise, pluralism different level like gender discrimination. You may go to gender pluralism. That we have had discriminative protection system under the constitution and the laws. Special laws for women, special laws for the scheduled castes, special laws scheduled tribes, special laws for children, and special laws for various categories of people. Because this pluralism is also a reality in this country. But then you solve one problem, others arise. Indian pluralism is so deeply embedded, it is so aggressive and competitive, that within a larger circle, there are inner circles. There is pluralism, there is inner pluralism, there is still inner pluralism. As a consequence, the problem becomes one which cannot be solved, insoluble problem. Like for instance, we reserve in government services seats for scheduled tribes. Certain tribes are recognized and notified, nor certain others come forward and claim that we should also get the same status because we have been deprived of benefit of reservation for scheduled tribes. To be specific, this is what demand of Gujars has been. Gujars are a backward community. They say to compete with Jats. Jats are highly educated, more educated, socially more advanced, better educated. So they grab all the jobs and we are left high and dry. So declare us as a scheduled tribe mean us opposite. Because if they are recognized as a tribe, then Mina's cake of scheduled tribe would be smaller. There is a conflict within the larger circle between different groups who clamor for more and more reservation on the basis of this sort of pluralism. And there has been agitations, there has been police action, there has been unrest, properties have been burnt, people have died, and this thing continues in one form or the other. And these inner circles have asserted the identity so much, please mark my words, that now almost every community, every religion is claiming reservation on one pretext or the other. If you look up the list of backward classes, scheduled castes and tribes, there have been recommendations by certain commissions. Like, for example, there was a Gurnam Commission in Haryana. They declared even Jats and Bansals as backward classes. If you expand the list so much, who is left out? Maybe only a small portion of the community, which you call the higher classes. And now higher classes claim not on the basis of backwardness, on the basis of economic poverty. We are Brahmins, we are Pandits, but reservation will be given because we are economically backward. They are not talking of educationally, socially backward, which the constitution recognizes. They claim it on the basis of economic poverty. That earning level, economic poverty, should be the basis for reservation and not socially and educationally backward at the ground. Consequently, I think 2000, I'm not sure, maybe 20 or 19, I think in 20 or 21, Modi government has granted 10% reservation to the economically poor higher classes. Please mark it. 10% extra over and above reservation for higher classes, forward classes who are economically backward. As students of law, you must be aware of this reservation sanctioned by Modi government. So now if there are so many circles within the larger circle, then this problem seems to be a big problem for which law cannot find a solution. It is difficult. So my net conclusion is that legal management of pluralism is one aspect and we can't ignore it. We should plan for it. We should do it. We have been doing it. But then problem still remains insoluble. So what the alternative? The alternative is that we should also employ the social mechanics for management of Indian diversity, management of combative, aggressive, assertive Indian pluralism of different types. What could be done? You are reading every day. You are watching things that there is a lot of communal rioting recently. For drop of a hat, communal riots break out. This has become a regular feature which has created a state of lawlessness. And communities fight each other. Casualties happen. Can we control all this through instrument of law alone? Deploy the police force, keep surveillance, collect intelligence, take preventive measures, take punitive measures, put them on trial, hold them accountable. Well, these things are very necessary and important. You have to employ these techniques. But then social mechanics should be worked out. Like, for example, instead of concentration of powers, we should go for decentralization, dispersal of powers, dispersal of powers at local level so that people manage their own affairs themselves. Like, for example, local development schemes. Kindly let people participate, work through these schemes, implement these schemes, so that there's sense of participation and don't have sense of imposition from above. And in doing so, you ensure that planning bodies or boards, councils or committees, whatever you call them, at local level, should be representative of all diverse sections of the society. Include there representatives of all tribes, all religions, all cultural groups, linguistic groups, whatever you have the locality, involve them. So if they are working and planning and implementing that local scheme, they will have a sense of participation and probably they will cooperate with each other. They will cooperate with each other. No, they have no reason to cooperate because everything is centrally directed. Everything is from above. It is not between them. Then likewise, for social peace and tranquility, You must have peace committees. These peace committees should represent all interest groups, and they must have mandatory meetings at short intervals so that they can monitor the potential dangerous developments, the brewing strife. They can monitor it and then take appropriate steps so that peace is maintained. Government tries this whenever there's an eruption, whenever there's some rioting. Then we try to invite leaders of all sections. Please sit together, work out a solution, try to maintain peace, convince people. This ad hoc arrangement shall not work. We must have permanent institutions in place. They work 24/7, 365 days. This should be a permanent feature of social organization. This is what is needed at social level. Then again, we should also impart education. Education, not the type that we have today. Today, education is given with commercial point of view in mind. You have to succeed in competitive examination. Grab a job. This is all important, nothing else. Moral education, even religious education, or maybe I'd call it social education. Apprise people of their social responsibility and convince them it is in their own interest. Strife and conflict, combative, assertive pluralism shall be to nobody's interest. It shall not help anybody. This shall undermine social peace and tranquility. That sort of education should be designed and should be part of the overall education policy. This is another important step that can be taken at social level. Now comes the role of leaders of the society. Leaders of the society, whether they are political leaders or social activists. I would not like to be critical of their role, but the fact has been, role of the so-called leaders of the society at different levels, that role has been negative. They have been promoting aggressive pluralism rather than convincing people that cooperation is the best alternative to combative aggressive pluralism. Same role could be played by the media, the print media, and obviously the electronic media. If you look at the media, once again, I want to don't be critical. What are they doing? They are throwing oil into the flames. They sensationalize everything, sensationalize, because they are doing a business. They are in competition. Who is more sensational than the other? That's the race. And if you play on sensational, you feed people on this will aggravate those aggressive tendencies. But then you know it, that media of all type is controlled by cartels. This is not people's media. Let's not believe that media is eyes and ears of the people. Well, they may be to an extent, but the fact is they are serving some other interest of those who control the media barons. Media barons have their vested interests. And that is why in this country we have right of freedom of speech. Does that include that you talk anything you want? You could also say, भारत तेरे टुकड़े होंगे. ये भी हम कह सकते हैं. हम गालियां भी निकाल सकते हैं. हम अन्य लैंग्वेज यूज कर सकते हैं. There are no limits because we have full freedom. Well, somewhere we have to have some control systems. You have seen some cases, some arrests, even of the so-called intellectuals. They are known as Luton's gang. Luton gang is well known. एक तो श्रीमती जी जेल में है, जो एनजीओ चलाती थी. Granddaughter of the most distinguished lawyer in this country, one of the most distinguished lawyer of this country, who had been Solicitor General for so long. But then look what she had been doing. In the foreign pay, they support, enhance division, conflict, strife. And Western powers, enemy states, they have an interest. Don't let this country develop. Foment social unrest, rioting, violence. This is with the design. And so many countrymen who call themselves intellectuals, liberals, Democrats, social activists, agents of social change, they are all doing it. It is time about that such people must have change of heart. And if they don't have, then law must take its own course and must tame, because liberty is not without limits. Liberty and freedom is responsibility. Those who don't use liberty with responsibility, they have no right to enjoy that liberty. So if we invoke and operationalize these social mechanics, then probably we shall be aiding, strengthening the legal management of Indian pluralism. They must work hand in hand, in cooperation, in cohesion. And if we put both these mechanisms together and operationalize, I hope we shall be able to manage Indian pluralism within certain defined limits, if not entirely, to a satisfactory level. With these few words, I conclude it here, and I would like to answer your questions if you have any.
Thank you so much, sir.
You are welcome, but questions are welcome.
Yes, sir. Do you have any questions, participants? Sir, only thing is, when we had Republican dreams and we adopted colonial means, so naturally there is asymmetry between Republican dreams and colonial means. So how
Yes.
colonized laws, which we perpetuated even after independence, are going to solve or achieve Republican dreams?
That is why the system that has not worked for so many years now, because it is Western, we are experimenting with different stopgap arrangements, like activate panchayat system, dispute settled by them, have lok adalats, conciliation, arbitration. We are employing these means. But then these are also part of the same framework, the legal regime of the state. It is not outside the state. I will not treat it as independent dispensation. In fact, these must be independent of state control. They should not be state directed. Let people evolve and employ these means for dispute settlements, for conflict resolution. But that's an option. Look, आपकी लीगल एड क्या है, आपके लोक अदालत क्या है, ये क्या काम कर रहे हैं? Even in लोक अदालत्स, instead of having conciliation, alternate suggestions for dispute resolution, वहां भी लोग कानून की बात करते हैं, रूल्स की बात करते हैं. रूल्स को भूल जाइए, वकील नहीं जाने चाहिए वहां पे सिर्फ वो सिस्टम अपोजिट करिए जो हिंदुस्तान में पहले था. हम ये नहीं कर पाए. दैट इज वाई योर ट्राइब्यूनल सिस्टम विच यू ब्रॉट फ्रॉम फ्रांस, योर लोक अदालत सिस्टम, conciliation and arbitration, we employ them, but then they have not proved very effective. केस अभी भी लोक अदालत से कोर्ट में ही जाते हैं, because those agents, representative of the system, they will never like dispute is solved through lok adalat. They want a court case. They have a vested interest there. And the system, the judicial system, is a very closed system. I do not want to critical, but this system has become, mark the words, self-serving. Whom does it serve? Does it serve the people? Don't you think there is a monarchy in judiciary? क्या जुडिशरी में हेडिटी नहीं है? आप रिसर्च करिए. How many judges of the Supreme Court and the High Court are sons and daughters of former judges? ये आप रिसर्च कर लीजिए, आपको पता चल जाएगा. So whom are we serving? They are part of the same vested system. That is why it has failed to deliver. और ये जजेस कहते हैं, मैं नहीं कहता, जजेस खुद कहते हैं. They say there is corruption judiciary. Judiciary is a closed system. It is not accountable. It is not transparent. It's not open. And then a system peculiar to this country that judges appoint judges. Judges appoint judges. आपने नेचुरल प्रिंसिपल पढ़ा है ना? Let no one be a judge in one's own case. But then fact is, judges are being judges in their own case. National Judicial Commission बना, उसका क्या हुआ? On one reason or the other, this was declared as unconstitutional. और ये मैं आपको बताऊं, आपको पता भी है ये कि कॉलेजियम सिस्टम का कोई प्रोविजन इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन नहीं है. There is no provision for collegium system appointment of judges in Indian Constitution. मुझे बता दिए. Somebody could challenge me. They are appointing through the collegium system. Is this system provided for under the Indian Constitution? ये कौन से कानून में लिखा हुआ है कि कॉलेजियम से ही रिकमेंडेशन होंगी, जजेज ही अपॉइंट करेंगे, रेकमेंड करेंगे, तब अपॉइंट होंगे. Unfortunately, judiciary is part of the same system which has failed to deliver over all these years. That's my reply to your question.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for this insightful lecture, and we have learned great lessons from your lectures regarding problems of access to justice. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. I'm delighted. Thank you very much for patient listening. Thank you. And God bless you all. Now I'm closing.